Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney and let's do the end of year book tag. It's been a little while. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've taken a brief hiatus from YouTube and we're just gonna get right back into it. Pretend I was never gone, okay? This is a set of questions that booktubers post and answer regarding all of their reading throughout the year, and I thought it would be a really fun way to jump back into booktube and also just catch you and myself up on how this year of reading went. Starting out with kind of a banger, the first question is the most disappointing book of the year, and sadly, this one really pains me. I have to say Between Us by Vari McFarlane. This book I gave 3 stars, but Vari McFarlane is an author that I hold in really high regard. It is good. Obviously, I gave it 3 stars, but I feel like a 3-star from a 5-star author is more disappointing than like a 2-star read from an author you don't know. This is about Rosen and Joe's relationship and it devolving. They're in a long-term committed relationship. Joe starts to put aspects of his and Rosen's relationship in a TV show. You kind of watch her become disillusioned with him and their relationship fall apart. That follows Vari McFarlane's standard plot lines. I felt like the pacing was a little bit off in this book for me. It was disappointing because I had such high hopes for it. The next question is, what is the Underdog book of the year? And I have to say Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. The jury was still out on Rachel Lynn Solomon for me because she wrote The X Talk, which I didn't love, and then she wrote Weather Girl, which I loved, and then she wrote Business or Pleasure. The premise of this book did not speak to me at all. Business or Pleasure is about Chandler and Finn. Chandler is a ghostwriter and she is not super satisfied with the way her life is going right now. She is introduced to Finn. Finn is an actor from like a old werewolf teen show and he needs a ghostwriter for a memoir that he is going to be putting out. They hired Chandler to be the ghostwriter. That's all fine and well, but the interesting thing is that Chandler and Finn had hooked up. They had a one-night stand, and when I tell you that the way that Rachel Lynn Solomon built the tension between these two, you are just in it. You were so ready to be satisfied with an early hookup payoff, and then it just crumbles in the most awkward, fated steps, and it felt very real, and I loved it. And then these two enter in an agreement to become kind of friends with benefits, business or pleasure, if you will. It is so sexy. This book is like 3 chili peppers for a contemporary romance that's pretty high, all the while maintaining character growth, and I loved it. This solidified Rachel Lynn Solomon as an author to watch for me, and I was sure I wasn't going to like it because I am not a hookup early in the book kind of gal, and I'm not a friends with benefits kind of gal. I don't love those concepts normally in books, which is why I didn't buy the book, but now it is on my Christmas list. Next is a book that was overhyped, and I'm sadly going to have to say Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Everybody and anybody who has eyeballs and has read a book or hasn't read a book that was on the internet over the past couple of months heard about Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, which is the sequel to Fourth Wing that came out in May. I still rated this book 4 stars, but this book was a disappointment. It was extremely hyped. I guess maybe hyped isn't the right word because it hadn't come out yet, but everybody was so excited because Fourth Wing was so hyped. It's such a long book. I read it on my Kindle and I think it's over 1,000 pages on a Kindle. The pacing was off. The modernity of the language really took me out of the story. And while it's a fun time, obviously I gave it 4 stars, I will not be as quick to grab the next book. I might look up spoilers. I think I'm gonna trust other people's opinions. Fourth Wing was a fun time. It was so quick. I read it really quick and I was part of that first hype team. And then Iron Flame was a bit of a letdown. I won't be rushing to pick up the third one. Some of the dialogue really cringed me out and took me out of the book. Next is your favorite book couple, and I have to talk about Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I read it on Kindle Unlimited. I obviously have a physical copy now because I love this book. I think I only ended up giving like 3 or 4 romances of 5-star this year, and this is one of them. This couple in this book is Win and Bo. They get involved really early on, and the relationship becomes very serious very quickly, and you get to watch them try and navigate the circumstances of that. Both Win and Bo have a limb difference. Win is born with a small left hand, and then Bo is missing part of his leg. I just love these two characters. This book gets surprisingly spicy for the amount of scenes that you get in here, and it's another romance that just really filled all of my requirements. Great character development, good spice, and characters that I enjoy the whole way through. Next up is your favorite main character, and I have to do a throwback to the beginning of the year with Ryland Grace from Project Hail Mary. It was really fun to go through these questions and see that some of my answers are books that I read at the beginning of the year. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I worry sometimes with the amount of books I consume. I'm just blowing through them, that it's always the latest and greatest, that I'm not going to actually take the time to remember characters or remember plots or remember anything. This question brought Ryland Grace back to the forefront of my mind. I remembered his full name without having to look it up. He is just the best. He is on a solo space mission to help save Earth. He is alone for the majority of the book with some flashbacks here and there. He is just such a special, quirky, manic pixie dream boy character, and I absolutely love him. If you have not read Project Hail Mary, you have to pick it up. It is such a good read. Next up is a book that surprised me, and I have to give this award to The Shining by Stephen King. I read 2 books by Stephen King this year, which is my first foray into Mr. King's works, and The Shining was a 5-star book for me. It was so good. I listened to it on audio. If you're an audio girly, I recommend listening to it. I could not have guessed that I would love this book as much as I did. It is so spooky. I am obsessed with this book. It will go down in my Hall of Fame, and it's also not my genre. I'm not a horror girly. I'm not a ghost story girl, and this book just really topped the charts for me. If you have not read The Shining or listened to it, or you're scared to get into Stephen King but you like ghost stories, anything like that, it is a spooky scary, but it is a very fun time, and I could not stop the audiobook to save my life. I listened to it so quickly. New favorite author that I discovered in 2023, I have to give this award to Mr. Stephen King. I know I just talked about him. Obviously he's not a new author, but he is new to me because I am not a scary gal. I read one horror book in 2022 and that was enough for me, and now I've read 2 of Stephen King's books and I'm in the middle of a 3rd, and I've just really fallen in love with his writing. He's such a talented author. He's so good at telling stories. I am one of those people that cannot really picture things in my mind, and he gets me as close to being able to see things in my mind as possible, which is amazing because I really am like just reading for the vibes, and his vibes are great. I have to put Sarah J. Maas on this list. She wrote the ACOTAR series, and that book owns my little heart. I have like 2 sweaters devoted to that series. I think she's such a talented author. If you're asking yourself ACOTAR or Fourth Wing, ACOTAR all day. And then last but certainly not least, I'm gonna put Rachel Lynn Solomon. She's 2 for 3 for 5-star reads for me right now, and I think I gave the X-Talk a 4-star. I definitely have to put her on that list, even though she's not a new author to me. Okay, the next is the happiest book of the year. I actually struggled picking a book for this. I'm going to say though, Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This was another surprising 5-star for me because I was not a huge fan of Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, but Love Theoretically really ticked all my boxes. I love the character growth we see from the female main character, and I love Jack. I cannot remember the female main character's name, and I apologize for that, but I loved Jack. I loved the whole story, and I just thought that we saw some writing growth. It still felt very STEMinist, that's what she writes, but it didn't feel so removed from reality. The next question is the most frustrating book of the year, and this was an easy choice for me. This has to be Layla by Colleen Hoover. I read this book early in 2023. This book is bananas. It is off the walls. I've tried to get people to read this book just because I think it is so crazy. I haven't had very many takers on that proposition. This book is about Layla and her, I think his name is, what is his name? Leeds. His name is Leeds. Okay. This book is about Leeds and Layla, who fall in love instantly, are together, and everything's going great. And then there's like a tragic event that happens, and now Layla is a little not herself. She's kind of going through some trauma, and Leeds is just the worst possible partner to her throughout this. And so to fix their relationship, they go back to a hotel where they met. At this hotel, Leeds gets involved with another guest of the hotel named Willow. Leeds is an awful main character, and I think you should read it just so we can talk about how bananas this book is. So incredibly frustrating, and I'm glad that I read it because I love having this much emotion about a book, but I have no words. Next up is the best adaption of 2023. I don't believe that I've watched any of these books become TV shows or become movies. So I'm going to say Misery by Stephen King, which is a older movie, but it is still a great one. Misery by Stephen King, the book, amazing. I think I gave it 4 stars. Misery, the movie, I watched quite a long time ago, and it is quite different from the book, but I feel like both the book and the movie really bring something special to life. There are very significant differences in the book than in the movie, and the book is creepier. Creepier things happen. If you've watched the movie, read the book. If you've read the book, watch the movie. It's a good time. The longest book that I read this year was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This was book 5 or 4, depending on how you consider Court of Frost and Starlight in the Agatar series. I think it was like 717 pages, a biggie. Yep, the longest book I read this year. And the shortest book I read this year is, I can't even remember what it's called, Sidetracked by S.T. Abbey. This, I believe, is the first or second book in the Mind F series by S.T. Abbey, which is a short series about 2 characters who get involved, one being a female serial killer and the other being a male detective. It's like Criminal Minds, but if Spencer Reed got involved, it's actually not Spencer Reed at all. It's his boss, so it's his name, Aaron Gibbs. Is Gibbs right? It would be like if he got involved with a serial killer. These books are fine. They're little shorties. They're all shoved together. That's why this is my shortest book, even though it's like if you can read the whole thing as one book. I only read 3. I think there's 5, and I will not be continuing that series. What is my favorite book cover of this year? I think this is an easy win for The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. I think this cover is absolutely beautiful. I love the colors of it. I love the hands. The sewing is like, it's such good imagery for what the book ends up being about. This book is a little bit culty, a little bit sexy, and a really good time, and I do recommend you read this, if not just for the beautiful cover. Next up is a book that you can't stop thinking about. Another easy one from earlier in the year, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This book occupies more of my mind than I can say. When I'm feeling like I want to listen to an audiobook, but I don't want to pick out a new one, it feels like a lot of pressure to me. I don't want to get into it. I always go back to listening to Ready Player One. It is so fun. Such a fast-paced, feels YA but is adult dystopian novel about a future in which everybody lives their lives online because life outside of online has become essentially uninhabitable. It's a bit of a quest, a bit of a coming of age story. You get like a ragtag gang of misfit toys. This is a super fun book. I have thought about it since I read it, and I think that this is going to be a 5-star for me forever. Next up is the cringiest book you read this year, and I have to give this award to none other than Be Still My Heart by Sav R. Miller and Emily McIntyre. I don't even know what to say about this book besides the fact that it's not good. I gave it 2 stars. The dialogue is not great. The plot is not great. I don't have a lot of very kind things to say about this book, so I'll just leave it at that. This book is the reason why I do not trust Book Talk for Kindle Unlimited recommendations. Next up is an unpopular book that you loved, and sadly, apparently really good actually, by Monica Hasey, is not all that popular. I think it's rated like a 3.17 on Goodreads, which is quite low. I did rate this book 5 stars. I stand by it. This is a stream of consciousness lit fic about Maggie, who is going through her divorce. She is miserable. She was kind of miserable before her divorce. She's miserable through her divorce. And we really just follow her life and her trying to reconcile with the person that she is. It is just a unique lit fic that I really enjoyed, but a lot of people seemed to not. I'm going to follow that right up with the highest and lowest rated books on Goodreads. For lowest, this baby right here, 3.17, is my lowest rated book on Goodreads, and I'm so sad about that. I think I said it when I read this. This is going to be a book for very few people, and those few people are going to love it. Usually I feel like I fall in line with the masses on most books, and this is not one of them. I'm an outlier, and I love this book. The highest rated book was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is another one of my 5-star reads. This is like top tier for me. So of course I agree with this rating. I'm just like all the other girls and I love it. Okay, next up is the book with the most unique concept. I'm gonna give you some rapid fire. I'm going to say that Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Nascosta is a unique concept. It's about a lady and a bull that meet at a milking farm. This is like Wattpad. If you're into that, check it out. The writing isn't great. Minx by Sophie Lark, another smutty little Kindle Unlimited romance. This one I did like. I think I rated it 3 stars, 3 or 4 stars. And if you were just looking for straight smut, very little character development, but a romance at the end of the day, pick up Minx. It is weird. It's a weirdie, but it's not like Morning Glory Milking Farm weird. It's just like weird when the doors close weird, but a fun time. The 2 non-smut books that I'm going to be putting on this list are Sign Here by Claudia Lux. This book is about our protagonist, Peyote Trip, who works in hell and is trying to get people to sign their souls away from the devil. A very fun time. Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. This book is a pretty through and through literature fiction. This is just a lit fic book, except 2 kids in this story catch on fire. Yep, this book is about motherhood, it's about found family, and it's about stepping into a role that you were made for but don't necessarily want. And I really liked this book, and it is a little bit weird. Next up is a book that I would reread, and I'm going to put the ACOTAR series here. I absolutely love that series, like unabashedly. I'm having such a good time with it, and I'm so happy that I read it because I think about it more than I should. Speaking of which, the next question is your favorite quotes from a book, and I have to say that the only quote that I think about from a book is Keep Reaching Out Your Hand, which is in A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I love this quote. I would have a sweatshirt that had it embroidered on it, but some of the ACOTAR sweatshirts are a little bit cringe, so I haven't found one I like. When I read it, I cried. When I think about it, I cry. I just love it. I think it's such a good quote in such a great book. Okay, next up is my reading goal for the year, a reflection, how the year went for me, and my 2024 reading goal. In 2023, I have read 84 books, which is amazing. In 2022, I read 43 books. I'm 2 books away from reading twice what I read in 2022. Of those 84 books, 17 of them were 5 stars, 2 of those being Twilight books. So I'm going to kick those out and say that 15 of the 84 books that I've read have been 5-star reads this year, which is about 17%. I'm really happy with that. Overall, I have the highest amounts of 3 and 4-star books and the lowest amount of 2-star and unrated. I would have more 2 stars if I didn't DNF so quickly. I'm like, I don't like it, I'm putting it down, and I'm pretending I've never read it. I'm really happy with the variety of my 5 stars. I have some science fiction, I have some fantasy, I have some horror, I have romance. I think I read a little bit more romance this year than I will be prioritizing in 2024. I'm looking forward to reading some weirder books. Love romance, but what I think I actually love is literature. I love lit fic. that is about a romantic relationship. So I like the focus on the individual while pursuing a relationship. So my reading goal for 2023 was 50 books. I read 84, and I think for 2024, I'm gonna make it 50 again. Actually, midway through this year, I considered increasing my goal to 100. I'm glad I didn't. 83 books is an insane amount of books. It's so many books, and I think that putting my goal at any higher than 50 is just putting undue pressure on myself to hit a goal that is completely made up by myself. I will not be going above 50 for the next year, but I'm happy with the amount that I've read and the variety that I've read. Keeping that in mind, the final question is, what is my priority for 2024 reading? What I would love is to read more lit fic, as I mentioned, read kind of weirder books that make me happy but aren't necessarily just romance. Love to keep track of my DNFs because I pick so many books up and put them down. I would love to know that at the end of the year, so I'm going to try and track that starting in 2024. We'll see how that goes. I really would just like to keep making YouTube videos about the books that I read. This is so fun. It's been such a fun way to track what I've been reading. I am sad that I haven't been here for a little bit, but that's just the way life goes. And in 2024, I'm going to keep prioritizing making YouTube videos overall. That's all from me today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!